Car crashes happen every day, but some are so disturbing that they leave people shocked for years. These are not just accidents. They're horrifying events filled with mystery, heartbreak, and moments that defy explanation. The kind that haunts witnesses, leaves investigators baffled, and devastates families forever. In this video, we'll look at 5 of the most disturbing car crash deaths of all time. Real stories that are unforgettable, chilling, and impossible to ignore. It was just past midnight on October 24th, 2024, when a chilling silence fell over Lakeshore Boulevard East in Toronto. Moments earlier, the sound of screeching tires had ripped through the night, followed by a devastating explosion that lit up the darkness like a warning flare. In the wreckage, a Tesla Model Y burned violently, flames swallowing it whole before anyone could make sense of what had just happened. Inside that car were 5 young people. Friends, dreamers, lives in motion. Digvijay Patel, Neil Raj Gohil, and his sister Kataba Gohil. They never had a chance. What started as a drive turned into something far more horrifying. The vehicle, for reasons still under investigation, lost control. It slammed into a guardrail, then collided with a concrete pillar at terrifying speed. And then, the fire, immediate and unforgiving. Most people don't realize that Tesla vehicles, while packed with high-tech safety systems, are powered by lithium-ion batteries that can ignite in a crash and are nearly impossible to put out. That night, the fire spread so fast the car became a furnace within seconds. But what made the tragedy even worse was the failure of the electronic door system. The power was gone, the doors locked. Trapped inside, the passengers had no way out. Tesla does have manual door releases, but in the chaos of a burning car, smoke choking your lungs, and seconds ticking away, who can think clearly? That night, the same technology designed to protect them became their biggest obstacle. But somehow, one survived. A 25-year-old woman in the back seat was still conscious, but pinned. The heat was closing in fast. That's when Rick Harper, a Canada Post worker passing by, saw the burning vehicle. Without hesitating, he grabbed a metal pole, shattered the rear window, and helped the woman crawl out. She escaped with her life. Barely. What Harper didn't realize was that 4 others were still inside. Smoke filled the cabin. The fire spread too fast. By the time anyone could respond, it was already too late. The aftermath left Toronto in shock. How could a vehicle, marketed as one of the safest on the road, become a steel tomb? Tesla boasts features like automatic braking, stability control, and stellar crash test ratings. But when power is lost, none of that matters. All those features vanish with the electricity. And this wasn't the first time. The lone survivor now carries emotional scars few can imagine. She lived, but lost 4 of her closest friends. Jay, Digvijay, Neil, and Kataba had full lives ahead of them. Now just memories remain. Authorities are still trying to determine what caused the crash. The only certainty is that once the Tesla hit the pillar, it became a death trap. A high-tech machine built for safety turned into something no one could escape from. Tesla, for its part, continues to point to its strong safety record, citing crash test ratings, low rollover risks, and autopilot features. But those statistics mean little when basic functions, like opening a door in an emergency, fail when needed most. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has already raised red flags about the Model Y, from sudden braking to unintended acceleration. But those sound like technical terms until they're tied to real people, real deaths, and real grief. Toronto is left mourning. 4 families shattered. 1 survivor left with the weight of memory and trauma, and a haunting question. How could a car built with so much intelligence fail in the most critical moment? This isn't just a story about one car crash. It's about what happens when innovation gets ahead of safety, when sleek design overlooks real-world survival. Tesla may have redefined the car industry, but this tragedy is a stark reminder. No matter how advanced the technology, it must work when it counts.
Tonight, a community is grieving. A popular family travel influencer died after being involved in a car accident in Mexico.
It was March 6th, 2025, a day meant for sunshine and celebration. Elise Caffey, a fearless family travel influencer from Utah, had just arrived in Cancun, Mexico with her husband Dan. They weren't filming or sharing content. They were simply guests at a wedding, taking a rare moment to be just a couple. No kids, no cameras. Elise, known online as 3 Kids Travel, had inspired thousands by proving that family life didn't mean sacrificing adventure. But this time, the adventure would end in tragedy. They were in a hired vehicle, cruising through the city. Then, without warning, a truck carrying hot asphalt lost control. In seconds, a 10-car pileup exploded into chaos. Their car was hit the hardest. It flipped violently and landed in the worst possible position. And then came the asphalt. Boiling black liquid poured into the wreck. Elise was trapped underneath, burned by the scorching flood. The crash had happened just outside a hospital, but even being steps away from help couldn't stop what was unfolding. The heat was so intense, medical workers struggled to reach her. Dan survived without injury. Their driver, Luis, died at the scene. Elise clung to life as paramedics worked quickly to stabilize her. She was rushed into care, sedated, placed on life support. Her face remained untouched, a small mercy. Back home, her family began updating Elise's followers. The tone was desperate but hopeful. Posts spoke of severe burns, and prayers poured in from around the world. 2 days later, Elise was flown to Salt Lake City and admitted to the University of Utah's burn unit. Doctors did everything they could. Multiple surgeries, round-the-clock care, but her condition remained critical. Her daughters visited her bedside, gently brushing and braiding her hair. Dan never left her side, playing guitar softly, singing through tears, hoping she could hear him. But time was slipping away. On March 12th, 6 days after the accident, her family shared the heartbreaking news. Elise had passed. She held on for as long as she could and fought so hard, they wrote. The post was filled with sorrow, but also gratitude that she made it home, that she said goodbye, that everything possible had been done. They ended with hope. We believe in eternal families and know we'll see her again. But the heartbreak didn't end there. Luis, the driver who lost his life, left behind a wife and 2 teenage daughters. Elise's family launched a GoFundMe in his honor. Over $64,000 was raised, not out of obligation, but because Elise had cultivated a community that cared. She had always said families should chase joy. That life was for living, not waiting. Her photos captured that spirit. Barefoot on beaches, snacks in hand, children clinging to her legs, adventure always close behind. She never claimed it was easy. She just believed it was worth it. And now, she's gone.
It all happened so quickly. 1 minute this bus was carrying a tired but happy group of teens who had spent the day at Kings Island. The next minute, there were headlights in the bus's path, a crash, a fire, and a frantic struggle against death.
It was May 14th, 1988. A group of children and adults from the First Assembly of God Church in Radcliffe, Kentucky, was supposed to be just that. They had spent the day at Kings Island Amusement Park. Laughter echoed on the way there, and by nightfall, they were tired but happy. 63 kids, ages 10 to 18, and 4 adult chaperones boarded their church bus for the ride home. They didn't know it, but they were about to be part of one of the deadliest drunk driving tragedies in American history. Around 10:30 p.m., as the bus made its way down Interstate 71 in Carroll County, a pickup truck appeared, coming from the wrong direction. Behind the wheel was 34-year-old Larry Mahoney. He was drunk, not just a little. His blood alcohol level was 0.24%, more than twice the legal limit. And in a few seconds, everything unraveled. The truck hit the bus head on. The force of the crash alone was devastating, but the nightmare didn't end there. The impact ruptured the bus's fuel tank, which was located near the front steps, an overlooked design flaw that became catastrophic in that moment. Flames exploded through the vehicle. The fire moved faster than most could react. Narrow aisles, no rear emergency door, a single side exit. Kids pushed and screamed and tried to climb over seats, but the smoke was thick and blinding, the heat suffocating. By the time rescuers got the fire under control, 27 lives were gone. 24 were children. Survivors were pulled from the burning wreckage. Some burned, some barely breathing. One of the victims was 10-year-old Patty Nunnally. Her mother, Carolyn, was home when the phone rang. It wasn't a rescue call. It was a request for Patty's dental records. Later, Carolyn learned her daughter hadn't burned to death. She'd inhaled toxic fumes before the fire took her, a detail no mother should have to carry. Mahoney was arrested at the scene, reeking of alcohol, his eyes dazed. He was charged and convicted of manslaughter and wanton endangerment. 16 years behind bars, but he didn't serve all of it. Good behavior shaved off the time. He was released in under 10 years. Since then, he hasn't spoken publicly. Not once. No apology, no explanation, just silence. But the silence didn't reach the families. In Fort Knox, in Radcliffe, grief echoed through every home. Some parents buried their children together. Some never saw their kids' faces again. The pain was enormous and it didn't fade, but from the ashes, some found purpose. Carolyn Nunnally, Patty's mother, turned her loss into a mission. She joined Mothers Against Drunk Driving, MADD, and eventually became the organization's national president. She lobbied for stricter laws, better enforcement, and, most of all, safer vehicles. Her push led to tangible change. Buses were redesigned with fire-resistant seats, emergency exits were added, fuel tanks moved. A generation of kids would be safer because of the ones who didn't come home. But not every heartbreak could be healed with policy. Janet KDA Hancock lost her husband Chuck that night. He had been standing near the front of the bus and couldn't escape. For years, she carried that loss, until it returned. In 2010, her son Charlie, just 9 years old at the time of the 1988 crash, was killed by another drunk driver. 2 decades apart, same grief, same pain. A circle that never should have existed. Quentin Higgins was 15 when it happened. He'd been sitting near the front of the bus, burned, scarred, but alive. The crash changed him forever. Years later, he became a school bus driver, not because he forgot, but because he remembered. He even bought a bus nearly identical to the one from that night. Quentin drives that bus to schools, sharing the story, showing young people what one drunk decision can destroy. Every day when I drive, he says, I think of those kids, my friends who didn't make it. I speak for them because they can't. And he's right. They can't. But their stories do. As for Larry Mahoney, the man who started it all, he walks free, quietly, unseen. But those families live with the wreckage he left behind every single day. They look at old photographs and wonder what could have been. The Carrollton bus crash didn't just take lives. It changed them. It rewrote laws. It haunted communities. It forced America to confront a truth it still struggles with. Impaired driving isn't just reckless, it's deadly. And when it kills, it leaves behind more than victims. It was April 28, 2023, a warm night in Folly Beach, South Carolina. Samantha Miller, 34, had just married the love of her life, Arik Hutchinson. Their wedding had been everything they dreamed. Simple, joyful, unforgettable. After the reception, they climbed into a golf cart to ride into their new life. Samantha, still in her wedding dress, turned to Arik and smiled. I don't want the night to end, she said, but it was about to. Nearby, Jaime Komorowski, 25, was getting into her car after spending the day drinking. Witnesses saw her stumbling, slurring, clearly drunk. No one stopped her, not friends, not bartenders. Her blood alcohol level was more than 3 times the legal limit. But she drove anyway. She was going 65 in a 25 zone when she crashed into the golf cart. The impact was devastating. Arik was thrown, suffering brain trauma, shattered bones, and a broken heart. Samantha died instantly. One moment she was glowing in her wedding dress, the next, gone. When police arrived, Komorowski refused a sobriety test. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong, but the evidence told the truth. Her toxicology report made it undeniable. She should never have been behind the wheel. While Komorowski was taken to jail, Arik lay in a hospital bed, surrounded by tubes and monitors. Doctors worked to repair his body, but nothing could touch the damage done to his soul. He had to be told that the woman he had just vowed to spend forever with was already gone. At her funeral, he wore a suit over his hospital gown. The casts and bruises didn't hurt nearly as much as knowing Samantha would never walk through their front door again. In court, Arik barely managed to speak. I wish I'd seen it coming, he said through tears. I would have jumped off the golf cart so you would only have run me over. His voice wasn't angry. It was hollowed out by grief. Komorowski pleaded guilty to DUI resulting in death and reckless homicide. She apologized in court and promised to spend her life helping others with addiction. But Samantha's family didn't want words. They wanted Samantha. Her mother, Lisa Miller, faced Komorowski and said, she didn't just take my child, she took all of us. 2 of Arik's relatives who had been riding with them were also seriously injured. One crash had shattered multiple lives. Komorowski was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Her lawyers appealed, arguing that media attention influenced the verdict. The court disagreed. This wasn't about headlines. It was about a life cut short on the happiest night of all. Arik filed a lawsuit, not only against Komorowski, but also the bars that kept serving her. He wanted to hold them accountable for ignoring the signs. This wasn't revenge. It was a plea for change, so no one else would have to bury a bride before the honeymoon. Samantha's story lingers. A woman full of joy and promise, taken in seconds by someone else's recklessness. It's a brutal reminder. Drunk driving doesn't just ruin lives, it ends them. There's a silence now where laughter used to be. A ring that won't be worn, a dress that will never be passed down. Arik still speaks out, still fights, because Samantha deserves more than memories. She deserves to be a wake-up call.
Tonight, Yavapai County Sheriff's investigators looking into answers about what caused a deadly crash near Prescott. Deputies say that 39-year-old Kristen Little of Prescott was killed when her car rolled down a cliff near Thumb Butte.
It was August 16th, 2024, in Prescott, Arizona. Kristen Little, a 39-year-old real estate agent known for her bright energy and adventurous spirit, had just celebrated her birthday. She was close to her family, especially her mother, Jinger Cutting, who still held on to memories of their recent girls' trip to Las Vegas. Laughter-filled days, snapshots of joy that now felt frozen in time. That evening, Kristen decided to do something she loved. She packed up her miniature German Shepherd, CJ, and drove toward Thumb Butte, a mountainous trail she often hiked with her mom. It was her happy place, a spot where sunsets stretched endlessly over the Arizona sky. No one expected it would be her final destination. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Kristen began the drive back home along a winding dirt road, steep, narrow, beautiful, and unforgiving. Somewhere along the route, something went terribly wrong. Her car drifted from the right side of the road, veered sharply left, and then vanished. It plummeted nearly 1,000 feet down a jagged cliffside. The silence that followed was eerie. No screeching brakes, no warning. When first responders finally reached the remote crash site, they found Kristen's vehicle mangled and twisted in the trees far below. Kristen had been ejected from the car. She didn't survive. Her body was discovered nearby, still and silent beneath the vast Arizona sky. It was already dark. The terrain was treacherous. Authorities made the gut-wrenching decision to wait until morning to recover her remains, but they didn't leave her alone. Deputies stayed overnight, guarding the site, making sure Kristen wasn't left in the darkness without care. But in the middle of the wreckage, one astonishing detail emerged. CJ, her dog, her constant companion, was alive. Against all odds, the tiny German Shepherd had been thrown from the car, but somehow survived. No major injuries, no burns, just shaken. He remained near Kristen, almost as if refusing to leave her side. When the deputies brought him back to Jinger, the moment was overwhelming. She clutched him tightly and whispered through tears, "God gave me CJ." It was the only piece of Kristen she could still hold. It was Kristen's Apple Watch that sent out the distress signal. The device detected the brutal impact and triggered an automatic alert. In such a remote area, that signal likely made the difference between days and hours in finding her. Jinger later expressed quiet gratitude for that small sliver of technology, as strange as it felt. Without it, the wait could have been even longer, the wondering even worse. Kristen wasn't just a daughter. She was a force. She loved the outdoors, the thrill of a hike, the calm of paddleboarding, the joy of having CJ at her side. She had built a respected real estate career but never let go of the part of her that chased adventure. People in Prescott knew her, loved her. The outpouring of grief when the news spread was immediate and raw. Messages, flowers, and stories filled social media. Friends shared how Kristen made them feel seen, how her laughter made bad days better, how her presence lit up rooms. Jinger, still dazed in her grief, remembered their hikes through Thumb Butte, their early morning talks, the way Kristen always wanted to be outside, exploring. "She was the light of my life," she said, her voice breaking. "She put her heart into everything. The cause of the crash is still being investigated." Jinger and her husband, John, a retired police officer, plan to meet with authorities. They know it won't bring her back, but they need answers. Anything to make sense of the senseless. To honor Kristen, Jinger is organizing a celebration of life, an outdoor event near Watson Lake where those who knew and loved her can gather, laugh, cry, remember. And she's going further. She's working on a foundation in Kristen and CJ's names, one that could support rescue efforts and push for safety changes in the area. Thumb Butte, beautiful as it is, lacks guardrails along stretches of dangerous road. Jinger wants that to change. She doesn't want any other mother standing where she stood. The heartbreak is immense. The hole Kristen leaves behind feels impossible to fill, but her story, her energy, her love for nature, her connection with her dog and her family won't fade.